Welcome everybody, and this is Dee, the founder of Dee Health and Fitness and the author of the book Happy Naked. I'm a personal trainer, energy worker or healer, and I also have a degree in computers. So my mission is sharing the naked truth through taboo conversations that will allow you to elevate your sex life, relationships, intimacy, health, and life experiences, you name it, your fitness, anything. And just please follow me and on Instagram under dmago_happy naked. You can search for me, Happy Naked Dmago, and I'm sure I will show up. You can also find me on Facebook under Happy Naked, and my fitness program, which is Naked Fit. I also have a private group which is called Naked Fit Online Tribe. And today we're going to talk about something that is really, really, really interesting, which is about rebuilding our life from the very, very start, right? And it's something that is really, really tough for our ego, Can you imagine having everything and then wake up one day, nothing? So like no place to live, no food, no money. And I'm sure normally as a result of all that stuff, we wake up even without friends or even family. I know that's a big possibility right there, right? And this must be devastating, not only for your body, your mind, and your soul. It is affecting your mental health, your physical health, self-doubt, confidence, like it's completely down to the ground. And you know what, it is, I'm sure many can relate to this. And in my case, I have many immigrant friends that have to do that. They have to start from, the ground up. And I keep, like when I moved to Canada, I kept hearing stories like that. And in my personal experience as an immigrant, I didn't have to go through that. And the reason is very simple. I was very young, and back home, we normally live with our families until I don't know, my mom, I think, left my grandmom's house when she was 50. So anyway, so it is a cultural thing. And of course, it's the economy, how it affects us in, our way of living. But the reality is I left, like my family, and I really, for me, Canada, it was the way that I started my life, my family. I left my family behind. However, I came here with dreams, of course, and my ex, who is my ex-husband now, and I was pregnant. So I was basically ready to start like my own family at that point. However, this is all, life always happens. And 11 years later, after I arrived in Canada, then it's when I experienced going through separation and with my ex-husband. And oh my God, that is when I really, really have to rebuild everything from, down up, because everything that my ex and I built, it basically went completely down the toilet. And I'm sure many of you can relate that we didn't split assets, we split debts. And I have to rebuild all that stuff from the very beginning. And it gets, for the first 3 years after my separation, I basically was in survival mode. Like, what the heck am I going to do? What happened? So there were so many emotions, guilt, we're supposed to marry and be like married forever and all that kind of stuff. So there's so many things, just breaking the family aspect, the circle. It is just, so there's so many emotions, and and it literally took me 3 years to kind of put myself together in many areas, which allows me to go through a lot of personal growth, a lot of experience, and of course decide what I wanted to do with my life. And it's when I started my business, which is originally the health and fitness, which is the umbrella of everything that I'm building now. And I keep growing, keep building, keep learning. That's what it's all about, right? It's life. It's I think it's when we learn, in my experience, when I learn to put my ego on the side, I think it's easier to move up or to move forward. And here I want to introduce you someone that I met a few years back through a local gathering called Women Talk. She was sharing her adventures during El Camino, if you know about this. And if you don't, just Google it, okay? And I'm sure Ariana is going to share maybe some of that adventures as well. And immediately I could see the wisdom and the beauty in her soul. So, and since I met her, um, unfortunately, life have a whole different plan for her. And this is, you know, I'm getting goosebumps. And this is who I want to introduce you today, Ariana. So starting over at 60, at the age of 60, following a series of events, culminating with the loss of her home and saving Ariana's embark on her inner journey, which was destined to shift her focus. Listening to her heart, she let go of logic and reasons and went on a 100-day backpacking journey. Oh my God. Her drink, pray, and love pilgrimage. That's funny. I'm sure you all have, you know, you all have watched that movie, right? And during which she walked El Camino de Santiago, shifted her focus to leading pilgrimage for others, as well as providing transformational coaching and speaking to inspire others. Currently, she's passionate about working with the energy of Mary Magdalene and the new consciousness that is surfacing to help heal the planet and bring the masculine and feminine energies back into balance. 100% with you, Ariana. A powerful heart-centered leader and transformational coach, Ariana lives and breathes from her place of what if, with a humor, and she loved to present examples of what is possible, especially when it comes to breaking down the paradigms of money, women, and aging. Oh my God, we have so much to talk today. Ariana is known as the yeah but buster, as she does not accept excuses for herself or her client. Oh my God, we have so much in common. Ariana embodies and combines the energy of wisdom, playfulness, and little mischief. So welcome, Ariana. Thank you very much for accepting this.
Oh, well, thank you, Dee. It sounds like we have a very similar journey with a few different players in the game, but we've gone through the fire.
Yes, always, right? I think that's what it's allow us to be where we are today. If it wasn't because of that, there wouldn't be any learning from life. We will go and reincarnate and keep reincarnating until we learn our lessons.
Exactly.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit before we jump into this whole thing. Before I want to say that none of the stuff that we're talking about today, it is going to be edited. So this is raw and this is the truth, and you will be hearing a whole conversation from what it is. Okay. And tell us where you're from, and if that's different from where you are now, where you're living now, what your home is today. So what is that?
Well, where am I from? Well, I'm also a computer person. I'm a computer database designer. And I came through a journey when my husband died that was my spiritual journey, which up to that point had been sort of off in the distance. I hadn't really had any connection to spirit at all. So his journey actually was 4 months in the hospital. And during that time, I had nothing to hang on to. I had no spirit to connect to because it hadn't been part of who I was during that portion of my life. And so I think we all have sections of our lives where we play the game. We're in the planet and we're doing our thing called life. And for me, that didn't have spirit connected to it. Mm-hmm. And so that journey was much harder than it could have been. But it was also perfect. So when we go through what happens, it's really recognizing and not looking back and saying the whole I should have, I could have, because in that moment, that's all I knew. In this moment, if I was going back to do that, it would be a different play. So I think that's sort of where this my bigger journey started. And, over the years, then I ended up, after his death, I had a big house and a huge garden. And I probably, if I look back, I would say it would have been wiser to sell the house right away because I had two incomes before and now it was one. And it was a massive garden, like almost a quarter acre. So
Wow.
I resisted selling that because it was kind of like not really wanted to look at reality. I don't know if that's ever happened to you. It's like sometimes we're just tooling along and we don't really want to, there's a happy face sticker on things. And I did get involved at that point with a marvelous project that was to build software for Kyoto. And I felt like, okay, I can go do this and I'll make a difference for the planet and I'll make all this money. But the warning light was there and I didn't pay attention. And that's when I lost my savings as well. So that could be a whole other talk. But essentially, that brought me down to my knees, and I had to sell the house. I had to really face reality. And I think it's a difficult thing sometimes, whether it's relationships or in this case, that partnership was, I could see things that were happening that I just ignored.
Yeah.
And I think that happens in relationships in all sorts of ways that we are together as people on the planet. So once I sold, I put my house out for sale. It was a year till it sold, and it was like going, you'll understand this from your journey. It's like each month is, I don't know if they're going to come and take the house. I don't know if it's going to sell. It's this whole thing but it felt like every month, exactly what needed to happen happened. And I always had enough money, and it didn't make much sense to me, but I was just grateful. But by the time the house sold, I was mentally and physically exhausted of holding that all together and really walking out. The day that I left, my friends were in the house and I was trying to pack, or I was resisting packing. They were trying to get me to pack. So I was resisting packing my closet for whatever reason. At that moment, I didn't know why. It wasn't until I looked back and it was like this, I had sold all my furniture. I put most of my things in storage, but my closet, it felt like there was something about, I'll never find anything again. If I put this into storage, I'll never be able to find things. And it wasn't a conscious thing. I think I was just so exhausted. I couldn't put the pieces together to say, of course I could have found what I needed. And it was about 11 o'clock. My friends were freaking out. I had lots of help. And finally, one person said, I'm getting my daughter to come. And she handed me garbage bags. And she said, zip it. Just hand me stuff and let's get them in the bags. And we've got to get out of here, because he was coming at 1 o'clock. Wow. And when the doorbell rang, it was like what everybody had been so worried about for me. And now it's interesting how much emotion still stays sometimes when we look back at those really difficult moments, right? So the moments is, I'm far past that moment, but still it's interesting. I wasn't expecting to get that emotion coming. And I had to open the door and admit to this man that I wasn't ready. I still had stuff on the living room floor. I was still trying to get everything out onto the driveway. And he had, thank God, no moving van with him. And so gracefully, he was kind enough to say, I'll come back at 2. And he came back and we weren't done. He just looked around and he just said, just don't worry about everything. Like I was trying to clean up all the little things. So that was just this massively difficult moment. I got in my car and I had a dog with me, and I had really not processed, okay, what's next? I could just do you know what I'm saying? It's sometimes we have to just get through something. Yeah. And then it was like, okay, now what? I know what was going to happen next. And so I really hadn't even thought about the dog, and I had friends that I could go stay with. And so the journey ended up taking me to a Soyuz. I don't know if you're familiar with southern BC. It's in the winemaking country. And my stepson had a vineyard there. So I ended up working in the vineyard. And I was on my knees. I was clipping all the little shoots that come up. And, people don't realize actually how much work there is on a vineyard. And it's a very zen. It's a very kind of the rows stretch on forever. It's like there's 50
Yeah.
rows and I'm on row number 1 or something. But I could feel the energy of the earth healing my heart. And I was, so that was kind of the healing point, like you talked about, a certain point where, it takes a while for us to get our breath again, to get our feet grounded again. And I think that having that ability to just be in nature. And so I'm clipping away one day and my daughter-in-law says, why don't you go have a great adventure? And I thought, oh my gosh, no, I have to, I'm just starting over. I'm not going to go have this, spend whatever is left. I'd paid up all the bills. I had a little bit of start over money. And I thought, well, that makes a lot of sense. Yes, right. I'll just go have an adventure. And what's interesting, Dee, is if I was 20 and that happened, nobody would be questioning anything.
Yes, that is a good point. Yep.
Right? If I was 20 and it was like, it's just like, okay, well, we'll just go on and see what's next.
Yes.
But for some reason, I think there's a mindset around a certain point in time, and there's all the expectations of what should happen when you're 60 or what should happen. Are you retiring? That wasn't really an option. Yep. So it's like, it is interesting how society and mindset comes together. So I kind of went over to my mind as maybe it's just like I'm 20 and I'm starting over. Yes. And letting go of it being anything connected to age. It just is. So I had also been in a car accident that year, talk about a lot of crazy stuff. And I was at a physiotherapist and she posed the question, said, have you ever thought of walking the Camino? And it was just like that Zoom energy came through. Wow. And I knew it was something I needed to do, and it didn't make any sense. It didn't seem logical. I didn't speak Spanish. I'd never backpacked before. I wasn't a hiker. It was just like this totally illogical thing. But I had already booked.
Logic always taking over, right?
Oh, it's gone. And so I just, it was a starting point was Ireland, because I had already paid for about a year before I'd paid for a little pilgrimage in Ireland. So I decided I would start in Ireland, and I would go and train in Ireland. And then I hadn't been walking. I hadn't been doing anything. It was like, oh my God, I can't believe that I actually considered that would be a good thing. And Ireland didn't turn out to be the easiest place to get around. I don't know if you've ever been to Ireland, but the roads are very narrow and there's like trees on the side. And then I've got a backpack, so I haven't got a car so I have to walk to get to these hills. I have this vision of the hills. Have you ever had a vision of something? And it's just like in your mind, it's like this. all these rolling green hills, but they don't tell you what you need to do to get to the hills. And so I had, it was a lot of my crap was coming up, and I couldn't blame anybody because it was all my own stuff. Right? So I could share, we're going to skip forward, otherwise this will be too long, but that's a conversation for another time, me going through bogs in Ireland. And so I went off, and that trip was so powerful. The Camino, for any of your listeners, is about 760 kilometers in Spain. The distance varies a little bit depending on what you're reading, but it's a solitary walk. A pilgrimage is really that inner journey. And it's going inside, kind of contemplating, where am I in my life? What's next for me? Because I had no idea what was next for me at that point. I really didn't know, but I do know when I came back, I felt like 10 years younger. So now I'm only starting over at 50. So now it's like, I just was rested. My brain, everything got, that 100 days, just let all the stress wash away. All the stress just washed away, because I think there's nothing to do when you're on the Camino. I had been managing things for so long. And there's nothing. You get up, you wear the same clothes, you walk the same direction, you eat this, and then you repeat, rinse and repeat. So it's very much, it's almost like playing hooky a little bit. there's no emails to return. There's nothing. It's just
Yeah.
very, very simple. And it is, I would go back and I would go back and walk that again in an
Wow.
instant, because it's just so nurturing. Yeah, so that's really that. I came back and I had still no place to stay. I have to say my stepson adopted the dog. So that was,
Mm-hmm.
in case anybody's wondering what happened to the dog. No, my stepson kept the dog. And I came back and I had nowhere to lay, and I put a note on Facebook, need somewhere to stay. Does anybody know somewhere that I can house sit? And I ended up in a $3 million mansion for almost a year, looking after 2 dogs in Bear's Paw. So that's where I say where magic happens, where it's just like when we let go of all the fear and we let go of all that, that was just amazing. And then I spent actually the next 4 to 5 years homeless, but not, you know what I mean? Like not
Yeah.
homeless under the bridge.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
kind of how I got kind of to this point.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. That is, so you basically, when you did El Camino, you worked for literally 100 days?
No, the Ireland was about 25 days. The Camino was about 38 days.
Oh,
And
wow.
then I went to Bali after the Camino to kind of sort of rest my body. And
Yeah.
so it was 100 days. I came back through Hawaii and spent 5 days in Hawaii. And
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
I just, so the 100 days wasn't all walking, although, you know, Bali tended to be drink, pray, shop, and not drink, pray,
Mm-hmm.
love. But,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Wow, wow, wow. So so let's before we move forward, prior to doing El Camino, how was your physical condition? Because I know for what I have seen, it is doing this kind of like activity, it requires a level not only mentally but also physically. How were you when you decided to do this?
well, I've I've actually always been I used to run 10Ks, and I had a very fast 10K time, but I hadn't been doing that over that past period of time because there's so much stress going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I was not trained. And
Oh,
that was what Ireland was supposed to get me ready. And but what happened was I got injuries in the shin splints, and you know, I just because I hadn't been training. So it was a painful journey. It wasn't, I'm not going to tell people you're going to go walk and just do this, la, 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 la. No, it hurts. And you're walking, you know, between 20 to 32 kilometers a day.
mm,
And I had been, you know, I was in Ireland long enough to get some of that distance. Um, but I think, and for most people, I would recommend them not going without having a training schedule. It's like
yeah,
the training program, as you well know, for anything, it's good to build in gently. In this case, it wasn't so gentle. And I had shoes that were too tight, and I bruised both toenails. So I was in, there's many stories I could tell about that Camino, but
yeah,
the truth of it is at the end of the Camino, and this happens, I think, to most people, when you're in the last week, it's like you don't, at the beginning, it's like going really quick, like reasonably, you're not sort of, you're going at a good pace. By
mm-hmm.
the end, it's everybody slowed down,
Yeah,
and it's like calmness comes over, and
hmm.
it's like you don't want it to end at that point because it's so, it's almost, I won't say the word blissful. And once you're past the injuries kind of healed as I went. Um, there was a place where I stayed for a couple of days recuperating because I basically woke up one morning and I couldn't walk. I was like, my leg, I could barely get to the bathroom. So
Yeah,
I knew I had to take a break. And I think it's paying attention to the body. I'm, you know, I've been in fitness pretty much my whole life. I was a black diamond skier, a ski patroller. So I haven't, and do you know what I mean? Like, as you know from your training, that there's some people that just have an innate physical capacity,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and they're just built for
Yeah,
movement and for things, and I'm blessed that I have that. um but I think I've seen people on the Camino with like heavy packs, and you know, 300 pounds, like over, really
wow,
really overweight, And I mean, I was overweight, but I wasn't like what would we be calling obese, like more
Mm-hmm.
massively obese. But I've seen
Yeah.
people on that trip that are just um, amazingly just keeping one step
Wow.
in front of the other. And
Wow.
the biggest thing is to have a pack that's not, I had a blessing. So I had a friend help me who had walked. So I didn't have extra stuff in my pack. And most people leave stuff out of their pack after the
Yes.
first 3 days. They're dropping stuff off and throwing it out. And I didn't leave anything. So I was really well prepared from that perspective.
Mm.
And, I work with people now who are preparing for the Camino and help them kind of, get their the Camino organized in a place. It's way different than it was in 2011 because it's massively more popular. When I went, lots of people had never heard of it.
Yeah.
And now it's like, um, it's almost like people put it on a bucket list as if it's something like
Yes.
and it's really, I guess it is a bucket list item, but it's not a thing like to go to Niagara Falls or whatever. This is a
Yes.
whole different
Yes.
commitment for people to take an inner journey. And I think, Dee, when you talk about how do you get through this upset or that, being dumped
Mm-hmm.
on, I call it the tsunami of life when the wave comes and whap. And I know from my experiences that spirit had been whispering to me, my heart had been whispering, my soul had been whispering, but I wasn't listening. And I think that once we get to a certain point, spirit just says, she's not going to listen. Let's just get this done. And so we're being redirected in our life. And, I did have some computer work when I came back. It wasn't like I didn't have very many clients left because I had taken that time off to work with that other company. But I did have a couple really, really good clients
Oh,
that
wow.
helped me out for that period of time. So it wasn't like I was totally starting over, but when you have computer programming, you do projects and the projects are done. So
Mm-hmm.
generally speaking, when you haven't been marketing, then there's not new clients coming in to replace
Yeah.
those old projects.
Mm-hmm.
So it was me taking healing classes and learning about auras and learning about chakras and all these things. That was like, oh my God, you want me to do what? It's like um, I remember my first class healing. I took a 2 years healer training course and they were feeling auras. And I'm like, inside, I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? There's no aura. There's no puffy little pink thing. There's no, my brain is exploding with my logical
Mm-hmm.
aspect. And I went home and had a big conversation with God about that. What do you want from me? Um,
Yep.
but I kept on, I kept on. So I'm sure that was similar for you as you reinvented. It sounds like you have reinvented. And
Yeah.
even where you are today, even doing what we're doing at this moment wasn't
Yes.
something you dreamt about. When you first came to Canada, it wasn't like, oh, in 11 years or in how many years I'm going to be having these interviews with the most
Yes.
amazing people.
Yeah.
That isn't, I never dreamt that I would end up taking people on pilgrimages. I never
Yes.
dreamt that I would be a coach or a spiritual guide for people. And we we don't know those things that are kind of, our soul has this little, I call it like a little.
So the way how I see things is the event itself, it might be different. It might be different to you. It might be different to me. The outcome is always the same,
Yeah.
right? No matter how we get there. Or that's probably what we're looking for, at least, right? So, because you mentioned, the tsunami of life, we all go through that. And the tsunami is the actual event, right? The
Yeah.
question will be, out of that event, what are we what are we doing to keep moving forward? What is the lesson that we're supposed to learn out of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can definitely see that out of all the tsunamis that you have seen in life and having it probably being in the middle of it, what you have been learning, and what I hear from you is that you learn not only to listen to your body, but also to listen to whatever plan it's for you.
Yes. And I think for me, it's kind of, I'm a control person. I like to be in control. And so it's surrender. There's a surrender. The word is really, that's my word of the year. And it's really like, okay, God, what's on the list? What's coming up, and just let me know, tap me on the shoulder. You could give me a heads up ahead of time so I can sort of see what's coming. But what's interesting, Dee, is if something came through today and it was, you're going to go do this, and it was a really clear, like that communal call was really clear.
Yeah.
If I had to move somewhere, if I had to go somewhere, I would just do that.
Mm-hmm.
I think what I've learned is when it comes through, generally speaking, there's a difference between, all the maybe things that, because the mind is creating a bunch of what they think. My mind would create what I think I should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's not necessarily what my soul has come to do on the planet. And so when my mind has kind of gets involved in that, we have to let the heart run the show. And there's a lot of people who say, yeah, but you have to be practical. No, you don't have to be practical. Okay, I be careful because I don't want to advise people to do crazy things, but it's not about being practical. It's about listening to that inner voice, that feeling inside that says, this really feels like I need to do this. I can't see how it's going to work. I really, for the most part, because we can't even get to that point of how it's going to work because we don't have enough information. All we need to know is, what do I need to do next? Yeah. If something shows up for me right now, somebody said, well, there's an opportunity to do da-da-da-da, then I tune in right away, and it's just like, is my heart smiling? Is my heart got this big grin about it? But if it's here, the smiling, because it's like, that was the computer job. Remember I said where I lost my savings? That was here. I'm going to make all this money. I'm going to make a difference to the planet. Ha, ha, ha. And spirits up there laughing. They're having their wine and saying, oh, she's going to go do the programming thing again. And it's like, but I convinced myself here at the mind level that would be the best thing. And I was in my ego. It was like, they said, name your price, and I was like, nobody's ever asked me to name my price. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's so intriguing how we can get pulled into perhaps something that we could avoid if we were actually really paying attention to what the heart was saying. And that is the trickier part when that from yourself, when you're coaching people or working with people, is separating out what seems like something that the brain has figured out as towards something that the heart really is yearning to do.
Yes. Yeah, no, definitely. It is a big deal for sure. And I think, and I'm still learning because I don't, the unfortunate part, it is that we like, and it goes across, countries and cultures where we haven't been taught to listen to our heart. And even if I back up for you to know, and everybody that is listening, the reason why I studied computers, but let me back up before I explain why I studied computers, right? Because and in Venezuela, we go through, we do a test when we are in high school, and the test is very comprehensive. And I haven't seen anything like that in Canada. Venezuela, it has a lot of cool things, right? Unfortunately, it's corrupted, but there are so many things that it's being quite advanced, right, in our society. And I think now that I look back, I think that was one of the things. So we had to do a very comprehensive test when I was in grade, because we only have 11 years. And so here is 12. So in grade 11 or 10, we actually do this test. And the test, what it says is study everything from you. And as a result of your intellect, personality, behavior, and all that kind of stuff, it tells you what is the perfect career for you. And the top 3 careers that came up for me were psychology, sociology, archaeology. There's nothing to do with computers in any of that. Very, very humanitarian careers.
Right.
So what it turned out is when I came, of course, and then you get the report and all that kind of stuff, I was very, very excited because I'm like, I want to be an archaeologist. I want to be in Egypt playing with dirt. And it didn't turn out to be that way. Why? Because now it's when the logic brain was taking place. My mom said, you're studying computers because that's how you're going to make money. You're going to starve by being an archaeologist or being a sociologist or being a psychologist, whatever of those three I would choose. However, I was very, very attracted to the result of that test, because it was pretty much aligned with who I am. I'm still am, because I think that was kind of taking the essence of who I am, right?
Yeah.
And and I was like, wow, what happened, right? But it's the logic. It's the logic brain. It is my mom giving me advice for what she knows best. Is, of course, like my mom, like a struggle, I think, like many single moms. And then she basically, of course, she wants the best for me. And she advised my sister the same thing. My sister just kind of rebelled. I didn't. I completed my education in computers, and I worked in computers for almost 18 years. So, but here's the logic brain, because I always knew that wasn't my nature. I always knew that. What I didn't know, it's how I could make it work for me in life. Because that's not how we're trained. That's not how we're advised. That's not like even coaching. It's something that I never, like, why am I going to look for coaching? Like, what is the whole thing, right? It's all, a cultural thing. And then when I after my separation, when I basically went through this phase in my life of, lost, rebuilding, it's when, okay, what am I going to do now? So the first year after separation, I work in IT, I continue working in IT. And the following 2 years, that's when it was a complete survival mode. And just kind of, figuring out what my path was going to be, which is when, and ironically speaking, for the previous 5 years, I was already building my fitness education. Like, I was taking courses, I was working with some friends, it was fun, right? And then I never, even though that I had it in the back of my head, I would never thought I was going to do what I'm doing today, just out of this fitness. And I know it's taking a different turn, because to connect to what you were sharing on the healing part of it, same thing with me. I basically, my fitness mentor is where it didn't force me, of course, but one day she put on the table, I'm doing this weekend retreat, and I'm going to certify people in Reiki. And I'm like, so that was going to give me some point for my fitness. Okay, by the way. So I'm like, I'm gonna do that because I need my point to keep my fitness certification. Like the logic brain again, right? And I did my whole weekend retreat. I'm like, it was like, I don't know what this whole thing is about. I don't get to feel things. I don't see things. I don't know what it's, but I know there's something out there. I always knew, right? Because it's I think we all know that there's something out there more powerful than us. And now I believe that we have the power, right? It's nothing out there. It is us, right? But we always want to believe that it's outside of us. So anyway, I took my weekend retreat and all that kind of stuff. And here I am, I'm like, oh, what do I do with this? And I was supposed to do some work afterwards, and I did it, all that kind of stuff. And randomly, I have somebody telling me that she wants to do a healing project with me. I'm like, oh, sure. I'm a personal trainer. Sure. Right? Like, just, I focus on the physical health. To fast forward 2 years, like we're talking like 2020, she comes to me again and she goes, do you remember that one thing? I want to, work with you because you're the person. And I also have people, like I have other things. I have another friend who's an amazing healer. She keeps telling me, let's do this workshop. You're going to be good for it. And I'm also part of a corporate program and they do sound healing. I'm sure you know Sharon Karn from, so,
She's a good
and
friend. Yeah.
yeah, so then she goes and she's like, you're part of my team. We would like you to take the foundation of sound and music healing. And keep pulling me this way. But I refuse, I wouldn't say refuse, I rejected that calling for the last 2 years. And it was this year when I surrendered, I'm gonna use your word, I surrendered and I said, you know what? I'm just going to go with the flow and continue, because it's not my fitness work is not disconnected from the healing or the spiritual work or the mental work. It's not disconnected, and I think that's what my personal struggle was, because I was seeing that as a separate entities.
Yes.
But we are one, like we are. And when I study my energy, like when I did my energy certification, right, we're all one. And I couldn't, and it's still being up here. So it's so funny to see, right, through your experience and my experience, different events, but here we are, right, when we start connecting with calling or your spirit, or we can call it anything, right, at the end of the day. But it's when we start listening to what's happening in life. All the different signs are always guiding us in a specific direction. So all that being said, right, so tell me how, like where are you now? So rebuilding is all that. And so what's
well, where I am now is actually, I was leading walking pilgrimages in the Camino. There was something that moved me into something else, and it was really interesting. It was an end point, and I won't talk too much, but I got on a plane from my last pilgrimage. I'm just going to sort of give you the summary piece. And a friend of mine was sitting in the front seat. Like, she was coming from France and I was coming from Spain. So I am a huge believer in spirits able to synchronicity and how we come together, because you can't even meet somebody at the mall really on purpose. But here we are in a different country. We didn't know each other was there. I walk on the plane and she says, oh, Ariana, I'm having a party tomorrow. Would you like to come? And I'm like, in my head was, no, I don't need to go to a party right now. And so I had already made up my mind. I'm smiling. I've had that, that look when you kind of are started saying, I'll think about it, and you're really not thinking about it because you already dismissed it. And so it ended up, we were standing by the baggage for at least half an hour, of course, because Spirit is that good. And she says, I have something to talk to you about. And in my mind, I'm like, oh crap, I guess I'm going. And it's a Halloween party too, the next day. So it's like, I don't have the costume. She said, I have a whole bin of costume. So I put on a cowboy jacket, put some little sparkle things on it, and went as the rhinestone cowboy. But no one was there that I knew. I thought it was going to be all our mutual friends. It was really a neighborhood party. And she sat with me and she said, I have this download. Somebody's getting my information because I'm not listening, that you're supposed to do Mary Magdalene pilgrimages. And I'm like, what? I'm supposed to what? So Mary Magdalene pilgrimages are not walking pilgrimages. It's visiting spiritual places throughout France and following her journey. Wow. And I listened and I thought, okay, this is when we're talking about when something new shows up. Do we say yes? Or do we run like hell? And so I had learned by that point that it would be good to at least think about it. So she had given me 3 books to read, and I downloaded them that night. I read the books, came back and says, okay, I'm doing it. And
Wow.
that was it. Like, and I had books, like, this is probably another conversation because I think we're over time, but so now I lead Mary Magdalene pilgrimages, and I'm also building circles of women to come together because it feels really powerful for me.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I love being in circles. I love the conversation that happens when we're all together and we're
Yeah.
connecting from, like, it's like this conversation, which is really chilled and laid back and just having a good time. It's
Yeah.
like we're having coffee. But when we're in circle together, there's something magical. And the circles have been, women's circles have been powerful since way before
Yeah.
the time of Mary Magdalene, the women's tent, you
Yeah.
know, all these
Wow.
things. That's what we're wanting to, that's what I'm really feeling so really pumped about, is just getting that, opening up more women to being in circles, to being with other women, to having discussion, to talk about things, like to share.
Yeah.
And it's when we get together and we share these stories, like we're sharing right now, it empowers everyone to know that,
Yes.
you know, that the person in front of you may not be perfect. And I'm not perfect by any means. I mean, seriously. Um, and yet, if the person in front of you inspires you, then there's something reflecting back to you like a mirror.
Yeah.
And so being in circles or being together in whatever way, it just has that opportunity to open up conversation, to open up things. So I'm doing
Wow.
that. Plus I'm doing in there's a new place called mastermind.com. So I'm putting programs
Uh-huh.
together on mastermind.com. It's just, yeah, you're there. I
Yes.
think I saw it. So
Yes.
yeah, so I'm doing it. And I just said, you know, frankly, I'm, you know, it doesn't happen instantly sometimes. We think that maybe we see success stories and we think, well, they just went from here to here. It's not. It's a journey. Like you said, it's like 3 years after that of you kind of getting your breath back and finding your feet on the ground again.
Yeah.
But it's not, what if that's just okay? Like if we stop judging everything we do and
Yeah.
say, you know, I should have had it done by now. Isn't that a
Yeah.
common thing that,
Yes.
that most people are saying?
Yes.
Like self-judgment is so
Yeah.
strong. So that's what I'm up to. I'm here about the divine feminine, about the sacred
Wow.
warriors,
Wow.
sacred, you know, the women stepping into more the sacred warrior place from the deeper heart, like not
Wow.
from the, yeah. So that's kind of the new me showing up. And who
Wow.
knows, 10 years from now, I might be doing something else.
Wow, wow. Well, you know what? It is really, really amazing, and it's the level of resiliency that you have been also able to build, because it goes with at the age of 60 being able to restart all over again. It is a journey, and I think the biggest thing is to overcome, that egocentric thought. I think that's
Hmm.
what it comes down to, right? Because you said something quite interesting, that it's nobody's going to judge anybody that will start at the age of 20, rebuild something at the age of 20, than rebuilding something at the age of 60. And even to support that thought, 60s, I'm sure, is the new 20s. And the reason is very, very simple. We're looking at the age span, the lifespan increasing to 120. So if our lifespan it's increasing, because right now, as we know, it is around 80, 86 for,
Hmm.
I think it's 87 for women and 84, something around that. So men um, die earlier than women in general. So, but the reality is, based on everything that we know about our body today, we have the power to extend our lifespan like that, double, right? So, which means if we're looking at retirement today being at 65, right? So we will have, like, going forward, we will have to change all that stuff, period. Everything that we know today, we will have to change it just by knowing that our lifespan is getting extended, even double, like
Hmm.
a little less than double, right? So, but it means that now our retirement is not going to be 65, it might be 85 or 90, right? So all this stuff, it's just, we need to kind of rethink how we're going to do things going forward, right?
Well, yeah, I will speak to that very strongly because I think that this whole retirement thing that has been put on us does not serve our soul in any way. It's like it doesn't serve anything. So if we get rid of the mindset that I'm supposed to retire at 65, most people don't. You know, some people do have really lots of busy lives, but a lot of times people, you know, it's kind of this closing point, and you know, the whole thought of sitting on a beach. Like I love to sit on the beach, but not for 20 years. It's like, and what I think is the wisdom. So we are being naturally moved through these phases of our lives. And, you know, when there's 52, there's a reset, and there's different resets at different points in our lives. But as we age, there's wisdom that we've learned. Like it's all the wisdom that we have yet to offer the planet. And it might not look the same. It might look similar, but it will probably have a different flavor.
Yeah.
You know, we may be mentoring. We're more likely to be mentoring other people. We're more likely to be coaching because we've gone through that.
Yes.
It's easier to coach when you've actually experienced life at a strong level. It doesn't mean like I have to experience having a baby or, you know what I mean? We don't always have to experience everything, but we have enough experience in the generalization of our lives of loss, of grief, of failure, of, you know, and working through the unworthiness that so many of us grew up with, that whole sense of being unworthy, and being you know, shame and unworthiness is very strong in many people, especially I think that not so much young kids today, but depending on the parents. Seriously, there's these underlying things that are waiting to be healed, and I think that's when we do get that tsunami, there's something to look at. What do I need to? And then we become more and more aware, so that there's a point where we get triggered by something. And then almost, not always in the moment, but generally, once you've gone through a lot of healing, you can say, that person is like, I'm really noticing that I'm upset inside. I'm processing. It feels like I'm not being respected. It feels like whatever it feels like. But we can come to say, oh, okay, that's the respect thing. Now I can look at that and just say there's more healing to be done. Because if something's still triggering me, I haven't done my work. I haven't cleared the old past energies. And so I think when you say that we're moving into longer lifestyles, then it's like, what do I want my legacy to be? I think there's a point at what do I want to leave to be remembered for? That certainly doesn't happen when you're 20 generally. It doesn't happen at certain points in time. But when you're 60, there's like, well, if I were to die, what would I want people to say at my funeral? That's the hard thing. Like for me, you know what, to say something is very interesting what those things can be. Because for me, it's, I made people laugh. And it isn't what most people expect me to say, right? But for me, the most important, like, it's so funny, you know, but that's a soul thing, right? It's a natural, if I make somebody laugh, it doesn't even matter how, it just feels like I've had a great day. And there's other things that matter to me as well, obviously. But I think one of those exercises we all do, or we usually have as coaches, is just to have people write their obituary and see who you want to have come to your party at the end of things. So,
So what will be, you have shared with us a lot of different like insight in different areas, and if people are really paying attention, I hope they're getting all the hints and clues that you have been giving us today. I hope that really people really pay attention to this conversation, and maybe replay and keep listening until they really get something that says, wow, this is the hint I needed to hear today. I know you,
well, like, I think it's from, it's from both of us. I think that your wisdom as well is interesting, a nice collaboration there.
Yeah. So what will be the one thing from your perspective and experience and what you know working with people that you would advise, like it's that one advice that you would give out today?
Listen to your heart and let go of what everybody else is telling you.
Oh my God, yes. So I want to share where people can find you, okay? So you have shared with me, so the website is Ariana Brackenbury, right? So I'm gonna put all that stuff in the comments anyway, where you can find Ariana. And then also you can find her through Mary Magdalene Pilgrimages.com. So please go check her out. Do you have any Facebook where people can find you, any Facebook group or page?
Oh, yeah, I have Mary Magdalene Pilgrimages on Facebook.
Okay,
I've got Instagram. I can send you the links for all those, but I'm on Facebook
perfect,
all the time. My personal
perfect.
profile is under Ariana Rose. Um, I am on Facebook every day. I'm in, Instagram. I'm just building Instagram, so it's not as much. And so, yeah, you can find me. The Ariana website is being redesigned right now, but the Mary Magdalene one is up and going. And the new thing that I'm creating, I think for the mastermind.com, my first offering will be a Mary Magdalene sessions, and then diving into the divine feminine and the healing of
Wow,
the planet through the energies of Jesus,
wow.
Mary, and Isis.
Yeah,
Yeah,
wow,
so
using all
that's
that
pretty
energy.
exciting.
Wow, that is
Oh, I can do
powerful.
this. Yeah.
Wow, wow,
So
wow. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. And thank you everybody for listening. And if you want to, watch more episodes of Happy Naked podcast, please go to happynaked.online and you will find the links where you can watch on YouTube, you can watch the podcast, you can watch in other places as well on Facebook. So remember, follow me on Facebook under Happy Naked, Naked Fit. And also if you go to Instagram, you can find me under DMago Happy Naked. You will find me. And, as I keep working with these amazing people that have so many wonderful things to share to all of us, share their wisdom, their naked truth. It's all going to be posted as I keep adding and building and having the opportunity to talk to these amazing people. And thank you very much, Ariana. I'm sure we have so much more to share. So everybody, you will see more of Ariana. We'll figure it out when, but I'm sure you will see more of her in the future, because there's so many things that she has to share to the world. So thank you very much.
thank you. My pleasure to be here with you.